Pretty much everyone called Nintendo crazy when they decided to skip out on revealing new games at E3 and other major gaming conventions in favor of just posting their own video presentations whenever they damn well pleased. However, it wasn't very long until pretty much everyone realized how this approach actually makes way more sense, but after years of people fiending over possible release dates on when future directs might take place, the above-average sized end's been a little bit stingy when it comes to these presentations in 2020. And I know that an obvious reason for that might be due to the COVID-19 germs that are going around, but a big part of me feels like Nintendo might start quietly phasing their directs out. In fact, they pretty much told us that themselves. But you know what, while I personally hope this isn't the case, I do think there's quite a few reasons as to why that might actually be a good idea. What reasons could I possibly be talking about, you ask? Well, sit back in your Uncle Lonnie's bar stool, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, Hong Kong, Connecticut's toughest boy, Cameron all one word, to tell you why Nintendo might start phasing their directs out. Alright, so like I said, I'm sure people are gonna be mad at me for coming up with reasons why Nintendo discontinuing their directs might actually be a good idea, so I kinda feel the need to repeat that I don't personally want this to happen at all. I mean, there's nothing quite like Nintendo announcing a direct on Twitter as if they're leaving us a calling card Phantom Thieves style, only to drop the actual video the very next day. But after going through the longest direct route since they started doing them, I just think it might actually make more business sense to phase them out, or at least not do them as often anyway. I mean, as great of a job as these directs do at getting people excited, it just feels like the expectations have been getting unreasonably high in the last 3 years, and more often than not, people seem disappointed at any direct that doesn't announce 3 games as big as a new Mario, Zelda, or Smash Bros. Game, and sometimes people are even sad or angry when it used to just be high fives all around. And honestly, I think this is because in all the downtime in between directs, everyone seems to have specific games in mind that they want the most, and when they don't get it, many people feel betrayed or like Nintendo wasn't listening to them. But then on the other hand, there's also the hardcore Nintendo fans who attack anybody and everybody, who even suggest that any direct might possibly be anything but a home run. So naturally, this just leads to arguments for directs that aren't of the same caliber as some of their more notable ones, which is a real shame, because even though Nintendo's got assloads of great IPs, they can't always close a direct out with a Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild, because they simply don't always have games like that ready to show off. And whenever N-Dog does show big games off before they're ready, they run the risk of looking dumb if something goes wrong with the development process, which only makes expectations for the games grow even higher, which might help the sales, but if Metroid Prime 4 is anything but a revolutionary 10 out of 10 game, then fans are gonna be angrier than my T-ball coach was after I botched the big game last year. So rather than showing all their cards up front, it really does make more sense for Nintendo to only show games off that are gonna be coming out within the next year at the latest. In fact, just look at what they did with Paper Mario and the Origami King. Man, a brand new Paper Mario game would typically be a big enough title to at least kick a Nintendo Direct off with, but for whatever reason, in this pandemic world with a Direct drought, they decided to show us a vague trailer with a release date only being like a month later. This could either be because Nintendo didn't feel confident that Paper Mario fans would be happy with the game and wanted to avoid hyping it up too much, or that they didn't want the game to be tainted right off the bat with another one of those trailers that gets buried in dislikes over a controversial gameplay mechanic. But seeing as how the game just came out at the time of this recording, I can't really say for sure whether or not that was the case, but feel free to berate or praise the game in the comments though. But regardless of how you feel about Origami King though, I've gotta admit that I think releasing a game on such short notice could actually have a lot of benefits. Man, I don't think it's a good idea to not hype the game up after the initial trailer, but had Origami King been revealed in a direct alongside other titles, it would have either stolen the thunder from some smaller games, or lost some of its thunder to some bigger games. So honestly, I don't necessarily think that releasing games this way is a bad idea, but I guess we'll have to wait and see how many people buy Origami King to get a better idea. All I know is that as much as people can complain about directs being underwhelming sometimes, they always seem to complain a little bit more when there's no directs at all, especially when there's no knowledge of when the next one might be. So if there were randomly game trailers of big games consistently being scattered throughout the year, one thing we could be sure of is that no one's ever gonna fiend too hard, nor will they ever feel like Nintendo's just sitting around with their thumbs up their asses not doing anything. However, even though releasing trailers for games 4 to 6 weeks before they come out does lead to them getting a more focused spotlight rather than being lost in the shuffle, at the same time, I'm sure there's lots of people out there who only have so much disposable income that they can spend on games every year, and I'd imagine that those people would like a little bit of a heads up as to what games are coming out in the near future. That way they don't buy something that they kinda want, only to not be able to buy something later on that they really wanted but didn't know about. Plus, when you look at how many random-ass game trailers Nintendo uploads to their YouTube channel, you could easily argue that some of these lesser-known games would still get a much bigger spotlight in a Direct, even with something like Paper Mario hogging most of the glory. So while it might be bad for big games to be overshadowed by bigger games, Nintendo Directs probably do help the smaller gems stand out a little bit. But you know what, one thing that Nintendo Directs have been missing since even before the pandemic started was the element of fun. I mean, let's not ignore the elephant in the room here. We all know that the main reason for that is because Nintendo Directs stopped featuring the legendary Reggie-san. I mean, sure, the video games are alright, I guess, but everyone knows that the best part about Nintendo Directs are all the memes that follow afterwards. But not only have we been deprived of our Reggie moments, but we're not even getting any moments from anybody at all. I mean, even after the Reginator stepped down, Doug Bowser showed a lot of promise as far as memes go, but then he just kinda never appeared in any more videos again, and I have no idea why. Instead, we've just got some random-ass jabroni plainly telling us what games to expect in the most boring way possible without any kind of theatrics or anything at all. I mean, call me crazy, but I know I can't be the only one who thinks that the last few Directs we've got have lacked in the entertainment department. And look, Nintendo lacking in the meme department isn't necessarily a reason to cancel the Directs altogether, since it's obviously something that can be fixed in the future, but it still doesn't change the fact that many people never seem to be happy with what they get in Directs since they feel like Nintendo owes them something, even though we've never really gotten a Direct that was bad per se. But you know what, given how high some of these presentations have raised the bar, I feel like at the very least it might make more sense to do fewer Directs that are more jam-packed rather than to keep up with the schedule of one every few months. I mean, after all, fewer Directs doesn't mean fewer games, it just means that Nintendo would have to concentrate more of their game announcements together, which might run the risk of big games being overshadowed like I talked about earlier, but at the same time, I feel pretty confident that with all Nintendo's IPs, they'd never be able to deliver a Direct that anybody could truly find underwhelming, outside of the people who just look for reasons to be mad anyway. And if there was ever a time to start doing fewer but more impactful Nintendo Directs, then what better time to change the schedule up than right after the biggest Direct drought in history, where people are a little more used to the idea of life without Nintendo pumping these videos out all the time. Sure, this may lead to higher expectations, but as long as they don't try any of their weird Nintendo shenanigans and devote like an hour to cardboard games that nobody asked for, then I really do think they could consistently pull this off. Either way, there's pros and cons to random trailers replacing Directs, fewer Directs, and leaving the non-pandemic Direct schedule the way it is, so even though I personally hope we don't lose Directs altogether, I could kind of understand if we did. But anyway, what do you think? Are Nintendo Directs in any kind of danger, or do you think the only reason we haven't been getting them is because of that dirty old PVR virus? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody at some point. But let me tell you, if there's two people who deserve their very own Directs, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Brubs, Dubs, and Korzeth. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes and silly rewards in the mail. Send pictures or videos of you rocking merch if you want to make cameos in my videos, and follow me on Twitch if you ever want to hang out whenever I play video games sometimes. My name's Cameron, all one word, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.